My name is John, and I'm a 45-year-old history teacher in a quaint, historic town known for its charming old buildings and close-knit community. I've lived here my entire life, and my family has become a beloved part of this small community. My wife Emily and I have been married for 18 years. Emily is 40, and we have two teenage sons, Jack and Ethan. From the outside, we appear to be the perfect family. Emily and I have always been seen as a devoted couple, sharing a deep connection and strong family values. We participate in local events, attend church every Sunday, and are well known at the boys' school. People often comment on how lucky we are to have such a strong marriage and a beautiful family. I work at the local high school, teaching history to bright-eyed students who are eager to learn about the past. Emily used to be a stay-at-home mom when the boys were younger, but as they grew older, she took a part-time job at the local library. Her job is flexible, allowing her to still be there for the boys after school. Emily is a wonderful mother. She helps the boys with their homework, drives them to their soccer practices, and never misses a game. At home, we enjoy simple pleasures like family dinners, movie nights, and weekend outings to the park. Despite our busy lives, Emily and I always made time for each other. We would have date nights at our favorite restaurant, long walks in the evening, and cozy nights in front of the fireplace. We had our fair share of arguments like any couple, but we always found a way to resolve them. Our love and commitment to each other seemed unshakable. Our friends often said we were the perfect couple, a model of what a loving marriage should be. Little did they know, things were starting to change, and not for the better. That was the foundation of our life together, a life built on love, trust, and mutual respect. But lately, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. The woman who was once my best friend and confidant was becoming a stranger. This sense of unease grew stronger with each passing day. It was like a storm brewing on the horizon, threatening to upend everything we had built together. And as much as I wanted to ignore it, I knew I couldn't. I had to find out what was really going on. Over the past few months, I noticed Emily becoming increasingly distant and withdrawn. At first, it was subtle things, like her not laughing at my jokes or seeming preoccupied during our conversations. She started spending more and more time at the local library. She said she was helping with a big project there, but it felt strange. Emily never used to stay out late. Now, she had book club meetings that often lasted well into the night. She would come home after I had already gone to bed, her excuses vague and unsatisfying. The change in her behavior was gradual but undeniable. Emily used to be an open book with me, sharing her thoughts and feelings freely. Now, she seemed guarded and secretive. Our conversations became shorter and more superficial. When I asked her about her day, she would give me brief, non-committal answers. She stopped initiating any physical affection. The intimacy that once defined our relationship was fading away, replaced by a cold, uncomfortable distance. One night, Emily came home late again. She smelled different, like a mix of perfume and sweat. She tried to brush past me with a quick good night, but I couldn't let it go. I asked her why she was coming home so late. She gave me the same tired excuse about the book club running late. I wanted to believe her, but something in her eyes told me she was hiding something. As the days turned into weeks, my unease grew. I began to notice other changes too. Emily was spending more time on her appearance, wearing makeup and dressing up even on days she wasn't going to work. She also became more protective of her phone, always keeping it with her and turning the screen away when I was near. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed with a message. I glanced at it and saw a notification from someone named Michael. The message was brief, just a simple "Can VJ at TMT wait to see you tonight." My heart sank. I started to feel like I was living with a stranger. The woman I had loved for nearly 2 decades was slipping away from me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the evidence was mounting. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided I needed to investigate further. I couldn't confront her without solid proof. I needed to know what was really going on behind my back. The thought of betrayal made my stomach churn, but I couldn't ignore the signs any longer. It was time to take action and find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. One evening, I waited until Emily had fallen asleep. My heart was pounding in my chest as I quietly reached for her phone. She had always trusted me with her passwords, but tonight felt different. I was crossing a line, invading her privacy, but I needed answers. I unlocked her phone and began to scroll through her messages. There, Buried among the mundane texts about groceries and book club details were the messages from Michael. The messages were affectionate, playful, and far too intimate for a mere friend. They spoke of secret meetings, stolen kisses, and plans for the future. One message in particular caught my eye. "Last night was amazing," it read. "I can't wait to see you again." My hands started to shake as I read those words. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal wash over me. I had suspected something was going on, but seeing the proof in front of me was devastating. I continued to scroll, reading every message between Emily and Michael. The more I read, the more my heart shattered. They had been meeting for months, right under my nose. They talked about their feelings for each other, about how they felt alive when they were together. Michael would tell Emily how much he missed her, how he couldn't wait to hold her again. Emily's responses were equally heartfelt, filled with longing and affection. It was clear that this was more than just a fling. This was an emotional and physical affair. As I put her phone back on the nightstand, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a profound sense of betrayal. Emily had been my rock, my partner in everything, and now she had torn our life apart for this man. I wanted to confront her immediately, to wake her up and demand an explanation, but I knew I needed more proof. I needed to gather all the evidence before I made my move. The next few days were a blur of pain and disbelief. I watched Emily closely, noting her every move and interaction. She seemed oblivious to my growing suspicion, continuing her secretive behaviors without realizing I was onto her. Each time her phone buzzed with a message from Michael, I felt another crack in my heart. I started documenting everything, saving screenshots of their conversations, noting the times and places of their meetings. It was a painful process, but I needed to be sure. I began to notice patterns in their messages. They often met on the nights she had her book club meetings. They would exchange sweet messages before and after their encounters, describing their time together in detail. I felt sick reading their words, but it also fueled my determination to uncover the full extent of the affair. Emily was living a double life, and I needed to expose it. The truth was staring me in the face, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to confront her, but not until I had all the evidence I needed. The following evening, I decided to follow Emily to one of her supposed book club meetings. I waited until she left the house, then grabbed my car keys and trailed her from a safe distance. My heart raced as I navigated through the familiar streets, my mind replaying the affectionate messages I had read the night before. I felt a mix of dread and determination, knowing that I was about to uncover the truth. Emily drove past the library, confirming my suspicions that the book club was just a cover. She continued to a secluded park on the outskirts of town. I parked a short distance away and watched as she got out of the car. She glanced around nervously before heading towards a small grove of trees. A moment later, Michael emerged from the shadows and greeted her with a hug. My stomach churned as I watched them together. From my hidden vantage point, I saw them walk hand in hand through the park, talking and laughing. They stopped at a bench and sat down, their heads close together in intimate conversation. I could see the affection in their eyes, the way they touched each other lightly, as if savoring every moment. It was a painful sight, but I needed to document it. I pulled out my phone and discreetly took photos and videos, capturing their interaction as evidence. As they walked further into the park, I followed them at a distance, careful not to be seen. They found a more secluded spot and sat down on the grass, Michael's arm around Emily's shoulders. They looked so comfortable together, so at ease. The sight of Emily's smile, a smile I hadn't seen in months, cut through me like a knife. I took more photos, each one a testament to her betrayal. I watched as they shared a tender kiss, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the park's lights. The kiss was long and passionate, filled with an intimacy that should have been reserved for our marriage. I felt a deep, wrenching pain in my chest as I documented this moment. It was the final proof I needed, the confirmation that Emily had chosen someone else over me. At that moment, I couldn't hold back any longer. I stepped out from my hiding place and approached them. Emily saw me first, her eyes widening in shock and fear. "John!" she gasped, pulling away from Michael. He stood up, trying to shield her from my anger, but I was beyond reasoning. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and heartbreak. Emily stammered, trying to come up with an explanation, but the evidence was clear. Michael tried to speak, but I silenced him with a look. "I have seen everything," I said, my voice cold. "You have betrayed me, and our marriage is over." Emily's face crumpled as she realized the gravity of the situation. I turned and walked away, leaving them both standing in the darkness of the park, their secret exposed. As I walked away from Emily and Michael in the park, the gravity of the situation hit me. My marriage, my family, my entire life was crumbling before my eyes. I knew I had to confront Emily properly and get the answers I deserved. The next morning, I waited for the boys to leave for school. Once the house was quiet, I sat Emily down at the kitchen table. She looked nervous, her eyes red from crying, but I couldn't afford to show her any mercy. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Emily hesitated, her eyes darting away from mine. "John, she began, but I cut her off. "Just tell me the truth, Emily. How long have you been seeing him?" She took a deep breath and finally spoke. 6 months, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart sank. 6 months of lies and deceit. 6 months of her living a double life while I was none the wiser. "Why?" I demanded, the hurt and anger boiling over. "Why would you do this to us, to our family?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I felt neglected," she confessed. "You were always busy with work, the boys, everything. I felt like I was invisible, like I didn't matter anymore." Her words cut deep, but they didn't justify her actions. "So you decided to have an affair?" I asked incredulously. "You thought that would solve everything?" Emily broke down, sobbing into her hands. "I know I made a mistake," she cried. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you or the boys. But the damage was done. Her betrayal had already torn our family apart." "It's too late for apologies," I said coldly. "Our marriage is over." Emily looked up at me, her face pale and stricken. "Please, John," she begged. "Can we try to work this out? For the boys?" I shook my head, my resolve firm. "No, Emily," I said. "You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." I stood up, unable to bear the sight of her any longer. "I'm contacting a lawyer today. We'll start the divorce process immediately." Emily's sobs grew louder, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. She had betrayed my trust, and there was no going back. I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her to face the consequences of her actions alone. That afternoon, I made an appointment with a divorce lawyer. The pain of Emily's betrayal was still fresh, but I knew I had to stay strong for Jack and Ethan. They deserved stability and support during this difficult time. I started to gather the necessary documents, preparing myself for the legal battle ahead. It was going to be a long and challenging process, but I was determined to protect my sons and rebuild our lives. The confrontation with Emily had been raw and emotional, but it had also given me the clarity I needed. There was no saving our marriage. The only path forward was through the pain and towards a new beginning. The days following the confrontation were a blur of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. I immediately contacted a divorce lawyer and started the process of ending our marriage. I focused on protecting my assets and ensuring a stable future for myself and our sons. Jack and Ethan were my top priority. I needed to make sure they felt secure and loved, despite the upheaval in their lives. I met with my lawyer, a no-nonsense professional who understood the gravity of the situation. We discussed the evidence I had gathered, and she assured me that it would make the process more straightforward. Emily had betrayed our marriage vows, and that would be a significant factor in the proceedings. We worked on drafting the necessary documents, and I began to prepare for the legal battle ahead. At home, I tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for the boys. I didn't want them to suffer any more than they already had. I cooked their favorite meals, helped them with their homework, and spent time with them, making sure they knew they were loved. Emily and I had agreed not to tell them about the affair. They didn't need to know the painful details. We explained that we were getting a divorce, but that we both loved them very much and would always be there for them. The legal proceedings were challenging. Emily's lawyer tried to negotiate terms that were more favorable to her, but I stood my ground. I wanted joint custody of Jack and Ethan, and I was determined to protect my financial interests. Emily was remorseful and seemed willing to cooperate, but the damage had been done. Trust was broken, and there was no going back. Friends and family rallied around me, Offering support and encouragement, they helped me navigate the complex emotions I was experiencing and provided a shoulder to lean on when things got tough. My parents, in particular, were a great source of strength. They reminded me that I was doing the right thing for myself and my children. As the weeks passed, I began to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. The divorce process was moving forward, and I started to focus on the future. I immersed myself in my teaching career, finding solace in the routine and the joy of educating young minds. My students were a welcome distraction from the pain of my personal life. Emily and I worked out a co-parenting schedule that allowed us both to spend quality time with Jack and Ethan. It wasn't easy, but we managed to put our differences aside for the sake of our children. The boys were resilient, and I was amazed at how well they adapted to the new arrangements. They continued to do well in school and seemed to be coping with the changes as best as they could. I also began to take better care of myself. I started going to the gym, rediscovered my love for painting, and even joined a local hiking group. These activities helped me find a sense of peace and fulfillment that had been missing for a long time. I was determined to rebuild my life and find happiness again. Through it all, I stayed resolute in my decision to divorce. There were moments of doubt and sadness, but I knew it was the right choice. Emily's betrayal had shattered our marriage, and there was no repairing the damage. I focused on creating a positive and hopeful future for myself and my sons, knowing that we would come out stronger on the other side. After the divorce was finalized, I set out to rebuild my life with a renewed sense of purpose. I threw myself into my teaching career, finding new joy in mentoring my students. History had always been my passion, and now it became my refuge. The classroom was a place where I could focus on something other than my personal pain. My students' enthusiasm and curiosity reminded me why I loved teaching in the first place. Outside of work, I began to explore old hobbies and discover new ones. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. I found it therapeutic to lose myself in colors and shapes, creating something beautiful out of the chaos I felt inside. I also joined a local hiking group, and every weekend we would explore the scenic trails around our town. The physical exertion and the beauty of nature helped me clear my mind and find peace. My relationship with Jack and Ethan grew stronger as well. I made it a point to spend quality time with them, whether it was helping with their homework, playing sports, or just talking about their day. We established new routines and traditions, like movie nights and weekend outings. I wanted them to know that despite the changes in our family, they were always loved and supported. Therapy became an essential part of my healing process. I found a compassionate therapist who helped me work through my emotions and understand the impact of the betrayal. She taught me coping strategies and encouraged me to focus on my own well-being. Through therapy, I began to let go of the anger and sadness, finding a path to forgiveness and acceptance. Emily, on the other hand, faced the consequences of her actions. She moved out of the family home and found a place of her own. She continued to be involved in Jack and Ethan's lives, and we maintained a civil co-parenting relationship. She expressed regret for what had happened and worked to rebuild her life independently. I didn't harbor any ill will towards her, but I kept my distance to protect my own peace of mind. As time passed, I began to feel a sense of contentment and happiness within myself. I realized that my self-worth was not tied to my marriage but to my own accomplishments and the relationships I nurtured. I had created a new life, one where I could thrive and find joy in the everyday moments. One evening, while hiking with my group, I met someone new. Her name was Sarah, and she had a warm smile and an infectious laugh. We started talking, first about our shared love of hiking, and then about our lives. She had also been through a difficult divorce and understood the challenges of starting over. We became friends, and over time, that friendship grew into something more. Sarah and I took things slowly, both of us wary of rushing into a new relationship. But as we spent more time together, I felt a connection I hadn't felt in years. She was kind, understanding, and brought a sense of lightness to my life. For the first time since the divorce, I felt hopeful about the future. Looking back, I saw how far I had come from the initial shock and heartbreak of discovering Emily's betrayal. It had been a long and painful journey, but it had also been one of growth and self-discovery. I had learned to value myself, to find happiness within, and to build a life that was rich and fulfilling. As I stood on a hilltop with Sarah, looking out over the beautiful landscape, I felt a deep sense of peace. The past was behind me, and the future was full of possibilities. I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. With my sons by my side and new love in my heart, I was ready to embrace the next chapter of my life.